we just generally ask that, like, is it a leftist film? That's not like makes it good or bad. Just like we're just taking the temperature of the film.
Is it an explicitly leftist film? This is explicitly leftist podcast.
It's a question we're going to ask.
There is no left Hollywood. There's liberal Hollywood, and the right likes to conflate these things.
What a glorious time.
You mean peak COVID?
All right, well, when you put it that way.
What a glorious, lots of free time to watch movies and record time, for sure. We're already up to speed. We know what's going on here. We're just waiting for him to get in there and strangle him with his dick again. So let's get to that scene.
Let's do this.
I don't know what his politics were at this point. I mean, I know he sort of gets all Maoist-y when everybody gets Maoist-y, but I mean, who didn't?
Okay. Oh, the 58 coup. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry. That's not CIA.
This is a werewolf episode, God damn it.
Just not the one you were hoping for.
Yeah, and when that happens, when the werewolf comes out, you're like, God damn, all right, this movie's awesome.
Victor Ostrovsky, the screenwriter on that, former Mossad agent.
Oh, wow.
Not sure what needs to be unpacked there, but...
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of fuckery here. How many people have you tortured?
Well, that doesn't really change how fucked the system is. We don't have time for baby steps right now.
Because when I watch a Godard movie, I kind of like, this is very smart. I'm very impressed with your form. I want to slap you. You feel so fucking smug.
Well, do you think this is a leftist film?
No, not at all. We're going to have to atone for this movie.
Lead a open rebellion, then the camp gets napalmed, and then revolution, I guess? Fuck capitalism. Fuck all of this stuff.
Welcome all to the politics of cinema. On this show, we believe films are never neutral. There's a political as well as an artistic message captured in every film, in every time period, and in every country. We are on the lookout for all of it. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I am Isaac Miller. And I'm really excited because I've wanted to do this movie for a long time. This episode, we're looking at Pig from 2021 from director Michael Sarnoski. And this has been just... I think this is sort of my favorite movie of the post quote unquote post COVID period. Actually, more like of the
2020s.
Yeah,
that's the easier way to say it without having to reference a global pandemic.
but I think there's no way around that, right? Like, There's no way around. I mean, part of it was this was I think the first movie I saw in theaters after the pandemic had started, and it was a really good theater experience.
Sure.
And I was there with just a few other people, and we were all going in expecting one thing and got something very different.
Is that, because I think we've discussed before your theatrical experience with Mandy, but in like a different direction, possibly? Because I remember if I remember correctly, your theater experience with Mandy was like people were there for like the cage rage, and they really weren't expecting the heart that's in there, and the, well, I guess, the bathroom scene where like you get some cage rage, but it holds for so long that it kind of turns around and you kind of feel bad for cheering.
Well, the deal with Mandy is that the movie world is so weird that he's not acting weird in it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So part of it was that everybody had been so acculturated into it at that point that the things that would make them laugh in another movie, that didn't happen.
Right.
The difference with Pig, which stars Nicolas Cage, is that it's a reminder that whenever he does the cage rage thing, he's completely in control. This is not a bad actor. This is a very good actor who knows exactly what he's doing. And this is an incredibly quiet role in which basically most of the work he's doing is on his face.
Yeah.
And that's,
face and voice, I think, in this one.
Yeah. But like subtle tones.
Yeah. It also is a performance I don't think he would have been able to do at any earlier point in his career. Like he needs to have the, I don't know, like the gravitas that you get when you're, I don't know, more of like an elder actor who's been around for several decades turning in performances, because the role he's playing as a, former, top level chef, that could be like a 30-year-old.
Right.
Cast in this. But there's a weight to it when he's in the scene.
Yes.
That I think commands you. Yeah. Commands your attention.
Well, he has to be a top level chef and we'll get into the plot, who's been out of the game for 15 years.
Yeah, I guess he could be in their 30s then, but still, I feel like there's like a, I don't know, there's a weight to this performance that just pulls in every character to like his reality versus everything else that's going on in the movie.
Yeah, no, I think definitely. No, it has to be someone I mean, the truth is Nicolas Cage at this point, I don't know, how old is he? He's got to be 60,
I'll
late
check.
50s.
He is currently just turned 60 in January.
Right. He's not middle-aged anymore.
No, no, that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah, no, no, I'm agreeing with you.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's it. Is like I think you're right. I think it takes this stage in his career for him to be able to do this.
He's also on record as saying Pig is his favorite film that he has starred in to date and considers it his best performance.
I mean, honestly,
It's up there.
best film. He's been in a lot of good movies.
Hmm?
So, right. Maybe his best performance. I think it's his best performance I've ever seen him do.
I wasn't really prepared to rank them, but because he's got a lot. I mean, he's got a lot.
Right.
And I think the whole like cage rage renaissance thing has also, I mean, he did a lot of, was it like tax issues or whatever? Like he was just saying yes to everything for a while there. And you're like, oh, okay, we're doing this. But when you can do, everything from like Raising Arizona to Bringing Out the Dead to adaptation to Mandy to this, like that is a wide range of amazing performances.
I can see why this would be his favorite because it's such an actor's role. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He gets to do so much. He gets to do so much acting in a very particular way. So I can totally see it. Right? It's a real character role.
Well, and also it's acting, and we'll get into it as we talk about the movie, I'm sure. But it's when you think Nicolas Cage now, people think of everything to, like the chewing the scenery, the put the bunny back in the box, or even the one with the one he just did with Pedro Pascal, who I also adore. That wasn't a great movie at all. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, where he's playing himself in this whole like
Yeah.
age of Cage thing. This one is much more like, hey, I need you to be an actor. And even though people may have been going to the movie because they wanted to see like the Cage Rage come out or whatever happens in this kind of pitched as a revenge-ish kind of movie, you don't get that. It's a quiet, thoughtful, nuanced performance. So he's like stretching
Well,
the acting muscles that he clearly has, but maybe hasn't been able to do recently.
that's just it. He hasn't gotten a chance to do this in a while. He probably, and I think, what was that? What was that movie you saw he did this year? I haven't seen it. Like, I mean, I think he's part of it is, I think Mandy, maybe,
Dream Scenario.
yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't seen it yet.
I either.
I think my perception, but I could be wrong, is that Mandy opened up another period in his career. So
Yeah.
he'd been doing a lot of stuff that, like you're saying, like it's the tax stuff, but he's doing his thing. And Mandy sort of like is a movie that sort of like takes that and then like takes that version of Cage, but puts it in like an incredibly made movie. And that sort of reopened things up for him. But I could be wrong. I mean, if I actually looked at, I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I mean, there's still some stuff in there where you're like, nobody remembers like A Score to Settle or Between Worlds or Running with the Devil or Kill Chain or Primal or Grand Isle. But he did all those after Mandy and in between Color Out of Space and Prisoners of Ghostland. Like he's still like making several movies a year.
Right.
All the way up through like, Renfield and Sympathy for the Devil and Willy's Wonderland and whatnot. So, but yeah, long story longer, I see why this one stands out to him.
Yeah,
I think
man.
from a watcher, not somebody who knows him, obviously.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. I just have to say how mad Renfield makes me.
Did you watch it?
Part.
Enough?
You're wasting him.
Yeah, take a cue from Michael Sarnoski here. Like he clearly responded to how he was treated with this type of performance in this type of role.
Right. Well, but it's also that anyway, let's talk about Pig. Because part of his Nicolas Cage obviously is an essential ingredient of all of this, but there's a lot going on here. Should we un-ADHD this a little bit and quickly say what this movie is about, at least on the surface?
Lay it on me.
According to Letterboxd, we're not doing the IMDb description this time.
No, that ship has sailed.
A truffle hunter who lives alone in the Oregonian wilderness must return to his past in Portland to search for his beloved foraging pig after she is kidnapped.
I mean, that is the movie.
That is the movie. That is
Yeah.
the movie.
I'm looking for a truffle pig. Someone stole her.
I don't understand.
Tell him who you are.
You made the right choice being out there in the woods. There's nothing here for you anymore. There's really nothing here for most of us. Buy yourself a new pig.
What are you thinking?
I remember every meal I ever cooked. I remember every person I ever served. You live your life for them, and they don't even see you. You don't even see yourself.
It was billed at the time, we sort of hinted at this as sort of a John Wick with a truffle hunting pig, which is what we went in thinking. And there's hints of that there. It's well aware that it's playing with the revenge thriller format, but turning into something very, very different. In the opening of the movie, we see him foraging for truffles with his pig, who is very cute and adorable. I mean, who among us would not, fall in love with this pig? And him sort of living a solitary life in a shack. We see him interact with Alex Wolff's Amir, who is, who does we should talk about his acting in this movie. There's a lot of good acting in this movie.
I think his might be my favorite.
Yeah.
In this one, yeah. But go on. Yeah. Yes. So he's his bridge to the what's the term, like haute cuisine, like the upper echelon of snooty ass restaurants.
Yeah, I mean, this is a movie that is profiling, the restaurant, basically the restaurant business, right? And specifically people at a higher echelons, but not. I think that part of it is that there's an attack on the high-low elements here to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
There's an attack on the shape of the industry. We'll get into the politics of the movie in a bit, but basically that's the merchant that he deals with, right?
Mm-hmm. Exclusively.
Yeah.
Who we should note too at this point, as we're talking about the plot here, doesn't actually know who Nicolas Cage's character is. He's just a truffle hunter that he deals with. He's
a weird old man who lives in the woods.
With his pig, and he gets some great truffles that this guy can sell for quite a price.
But we will find out. Much like in a John Wick movie where you find out that the man who gets beaten up and his dog gets killed is actually the most deadly assassin in the world. We will find out that Nicolas Cage's character also has a hidden past, as the best at it that he is at what he does.
Right, which is not killing people.
Which is not killing people at all.
But since he has Amir as his bridge into this world, clearly somebody in the truffle industry, if that's the right word, in the restaurant industry that wants, foraged local ingredients, knows where his pig is. So he's the contact.
Well, we haven't said what happened to his pig.
Oh, yes. And
then in the middle of the night, while there are coyotes howling and his pig is getting very nervous, and he telling the pig, it's okay. It's just coyotes. The house is broken into. He's knocked out. We don't even see the assailants. And he wakes up bloody on the floor with his pig taken.
Which in the long run is better than the John Wick opening.
Yeah, I don't want to watch a puppy. Anyway, yeah, no. And then he tries to get his truck going, and his truck unsurprisingly doesn't work if you never use anyway.
Yeah.
Like the battery's dead. And then he walks to a diner and calls Amir.
Mm-hmm.
And thus begins our odyssey into the darker corners of fooddom.
Which I'm only laughing because there are a few points in this movie on the dark journey into fooddom that Amir and Rob, who is the Nicolas Cage character, go that I laughed at. There's a lot of kind of absurd humor mixed in that I don't know. I mean, I watched it on your insistence on my own, so I wasn't in a theatrical environment, but I also didn't really have too many preconceived notions about the movie. I didn't even watch the trailer or anything. You just said it was one of your favorites, and I was like, I will buy it and watch it, and then cover it on the show eventually. So I didn't know the John Wick-ish like revenge thriller elements that were leaned into in the trailer and in the selling of the movie. So it was interesting then because my preconceived notion then was like he clearly wants his pig back.
Yeah.
Not in a jokey way. Like it's a very sincere, way. People are very attached to their pets and with animals. I was ready for him to be violent at times and never is.
He never is. He early on his first connection. So basically, they start with the truffle hunting community. They find out that it's a couple of basically, drug addicts who have stolen the pig, who don't even know who they were working for.
Mm-hmm.
And then so they have to go into the city, and that's when we start to get a sense that Robin, Cage's character,
mm-hmm.
may have a past. I mean, obviously he has a past, but that there's something going on because they go and he finds
I would say Amir and Robin go to this. Are you talking about the underground fight club that's going on?
Right, which Amir does not know about at all. Right, basically he has to, like and Amir, they've already like the person who runs the fight club. Amir has already gotten a sense of like that there's something weird going on here. Like, why does Robin know these people? I mean, it's not clear. He's just discovering his name is Robin.
Well, that's where he finds out because they're at this underground fight club that's only for restaurant employees. So that was a point of kind of comedy to me, where I was like, "What really? What is going on here?"
Why is there a fight club for restaurant employees? What, they don't have that in Cleveland?
Not well. I've never really been part of the restaurant community, so maybe
we shouldn't assume.
Maybe we shouldn't, but it seemed a little comical to me, although it's not played for comedy. And Nicolas Cage's character goes up and he writes his name up on the board. And that's when Amir's like, holy shit, this is Robin Feld, world famous, chef who's been off the scene for like 15 years. And he puts his hand behind his back and gets the shit beat out of him.
Well, it's not a fight. So part of it is not actually
a fight. Right. Yeah.
Right. So basically what you do, you're betting on how long somebody can get punched.
Mm-hmm.
And what he wants is information about his pig.
Right.
He's not interested in the money. And he gets punched for he's already bleeding. So to be clear, when the pig was stolen, he's already bleeding.
Right. And he's not cleaning up. He's just on the hunt now for his pig.
Right. So he doesn't clean himself up, and he doesn't clean himself up after this either.
Mm-mm. And even Edgar, the guy who I think he's the one who's running the underground fight ring, the timer expires. Like he takes the punches, but then he just lets Rob get punched a whole bunch more.
And then stops it.
And then eventually stops it. Yeah. But that gives him the exchange he needs to get information from Edgar then.
Right. To start getting the first things. And then I think we have our first scene that sort of opens things up.
Yes.
And we start to get a sense of the two characters. So we get a discussion, we get a conversation where you get a sense of, we learn who Amir's father is and what his relationship. Well, do you want to talk about this?
Well, so after he gets the shit beat out of him and gets a little bit of information, Rob and Amir go back to Amir's very expensive looking, trendy corner apartment, glass windows, the whole, looking over the whole city. And Amir makes breakfast, which I thought was very sweet. Tries making some French toast for Rob, and they have this chat about, because he now knows who he's cooking for, who he's with now. This guy who also he's known for a bit, like he's been getting truffles from this guy for a while. He's like, holy shit, this is like this world famous chef, and he tells him a story about how his parents did not have it was a terrible marriage, but he said there was this one time they came back from like their date night, going out to eat, and it was from going to Rob's restaurant and having a very specific meal, and they were laughing, and the power of food to just make your day a little bit better, sort of thing.
Well, I mean, more than just it's a signal.
Yeah.
Event that they basically always talked about and never,
they were never able to capture that feeling again throughout their marriage. And then he says his mom killed herself.
Yeah.
So dad's around, mom's gone, and then Rob's response to that is a story of when an earthquake and a tsunami is going to take out.
We don't have to care. People first came out here 10,000 years ago. We would have been under 400 feet of water. Every 200 years, we get an earthquake right along the coast. One's coming up. When the shock wave hits, most of the city will flatten. Every bridge will fall into the Willamette. So, there's nowhere to go, even if we could. Anyone who survives that is just waiting. 5 minutes later, they'll look up and they'll see a wave 10 stories high. And then all of this, everyone, it's all gonna be at the bottom of the ocean. Again. You should use stale bread for French toast.
And this is I don't think at this point we've learned what the deal with Robin is.
No.
We know something has happened. We know he left the industry for a reason. We're getting a sense. So Amir's father is in the same business. And we're starting to get a sense of the hard, this, we're going to see more of a hard character, right? Of somebody who is controlling and sort of dismissive, and we've already gotten the sense. I mean, Amir comes off as very insecure in a lot of ways, as someone trying to the symbolism of this is that he listens to the most pretentious recordings about classical music, of the history of classical music. He's always listening to this in the car, talking about how classical music is this great art form, greater than other forms of music, yada, yada, yada. And so, like, part of it is like Amir is trying to be something that he isn't, because his, we'll get more into the father-son relationship there, but it's there's parallels between multiple different characters here. This is all going to come together in a net. And so, yeah, and then Rob told this story, and I've seen people point out that there's an ecological element to this film. And I don't think that's necessarily wrong. I think those undertones of that, I actually, certainly in relationship to food, but I think the story has to do with thematics, which we'll get into, of like what's happened to Rob and what's happened to Amir.
Yeah.
In some ways within their own families. But I also think that this is a movie that can be a microcosm of our society, of capitalism, and it's a movie that fits with a moment in subtle ways where they don't have to scream it, though I think it's always the story of a period of ecological crisis, capitalist and ecological crisis, but refracted through the film industry and our own feelings of loss and alienation. So, sorry, I just dropped it all right in there. And you'll see why I'm saying this, I mean, listeners, but I think part of what's great about the story that we just listened to the recording of that he tells about how basically the city is going to be destroyed, is that it works thematically, I think, at multiple levels. And this is a sort of movie that helps me cope with how fucking fucked up the world is, even though it makes me sad, because it is a movie about dealing with loss. And this is our first sort of introduction to that, right? That there is This is a movie about time, right? And this is our first introduction to this, that there is a delimited amount of time and that disasters will happen at a regular interval and that we will, well, this is the first time, and I think he says this a second time, Robin, that we only get a few things to care about. So you'd best care about them.
Yeah. Which is actually even the tagline for the movie. We don't get a lot of things to really care about.
Yep.
Which that to me plays into why I like Alex Wolff's performance as Amir so much in this movie. Because by the time you get to the end of the full narrative, you have obviously Robin, Nicolas Cage's character, you have Alex Wolff's character, and then you also have
Oh, it's Adam Arkin's character.
Darius. Yeah, and then you also have Darius Adam Arkin as Amir's dad. We know what the two older guys, the two dads, I guess, or the two, Nicolas Cage and Adam Arkin, what they care about. And it was so like bittersweet to me at the end because I was like, I don't actually know. Like Alex Wolff's character Amir, like he's a fully functioning adult, but like I don't have a sense of what does he actually care about. He spent his whole life either trying to prove himself to get in with his dad and his industry, or try to create his own little thing, cottage industry within the restaurant scene. I was first reading his interest in. He's basically listening to like the master classes or the great courses, cassette tape, CDs or whatever on, why classical music is amazing or whatnot. And I was even intrigued by him. I was like, I want to listen. I don't really know classical music. That would be interesting to learn about. But was he learning about it because he was interested, or was he learning about it because that's what's around all of the society that he makes his living doing? You don't really know. But so it gave me the sense of like, I don't even know what this character cares about. Like what would mean something to him? I don't feel like he's got like a sense of an authentic life at all. And that made me sad.
I mean, I think that the classical music bit there shows his striving to be recognized by his father. And in that he submerges any of his interests, because we're going to get to like Rob bringing these themes even more home, or Robin bringing these themes even more home in a moment. But yeah, like the themes about authenticity, about finding those things that you actually care about carrying them. I mean, I think we'll get to it. I think he would like it if his father wasn't a piece of shit and actually recognized him and had anything but contempt for him.
Yeah, I didn't get a sense there's any hope for mending that relationship, but we'll see. I mean, we won't see because it doesn't exist, but
So basically they have this scene. Rob talks about the end of the city.
well, the key tip though at the end of the environmental apocalypse that's going to befall Portland at some point is that you need to use stale bread if you're going to make French toast.
Yep. This is what's important.
Yes. Which is kind of a throwaway like comedy line, but it ends up, I think, kind of leading us into my favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah. Well,
when
and so
you're actually cooked together.
Right, because they have to go to this restaurant, which is the hottest restaurant in town, which is his father's territory, right? Amir is not supposed to go to places that his father supplies. And, Robin comments on like how fucked up this is, that why is his father not taking him into his own business? Why does his father not mentor him in this?
Right.
But he is not supposed to go to it shows the alienation there. He's trying to prove himself to his father by going into the same business. But yeah, I know it seems like he owns it, but I think what it is that he's the supplier. So Amir is technically the competition.
Right.
So he's not supposed to go.
I guess this is the part where if you're thinking your pig is one step away, I was ready for Nicolas Cage to, I guess, beat up the head chef when the head chef comes out to their table. And instead we get, again, like the gravitas of someone of Nicolas Cage's talent, just quietly sitting there, takes a bite of some of the food, asks to speak to the head chef. The head chef comes out, Derek, who does, everything you'd think you need to do when someone is in your restaurant and eating your food. He's pitching the whole concept of the restaurant and everything else, and just quiet and calm and measured as possible. Nicolas Cage just like, where's my pig? And then realizes he knows this guy. He was a former prep cook at one of Robin's restaurant back in the day, and
Who he fired for overcooking the pasta.
right, but he remembers him, and he very pointedly is able to, with very few, measured, calm sentences, get Derek back to what he loved about cooking in the first place, what his goals were as a chef, and just deconstructs this guy's entire haute cuisine reality he has by having the trendiest place in town. And everybody likes this. This is great. This is a hit. This makes money. This is what everybody wants.
What is the concept here?
We're interested in taking local ingredients native to this region and just deconstructing them, making the familiar feel foreign, thereby giving us an even greater appreciation of food as a whole.
This is the kind of cooking you like?
It's cutting edge. It's very exciting.
Exciting.
I mean, everybody loves it.
You like cooking it?
Absolutely.
Derek, what was it you always used to talk about opening? Wasn't it a pub?
Everyone loves it here. This is a huge success.
Why didn't you open your pub?
I don't know that I really wanted. It was just such a long time ago.
When I fired you, I asked you what you wanted to do. You said you have a few rooms upstairs. A real English pub.
Did I say that?
Yes.
Nobody wants pubs around here. It's just a terrible investment.
What was going to be your signature dish?
Liver Scotch eggs with a honey curry mustard.
They're not real. You get that, right? None of it is real. The critics aren't real. The customers aren't real. Because this isn't real. You aren't real.
Okay.
Derek, why do you care about these people? They don't care about you. None of them. They don't even know you. Because you haven't shown them. Every day you'll wake up and there'll be less of you. You live your life for them and they don't even see you. You don't even see yourself. We don't get a lot of things to really care about.
None of this is real because none of the people care about you here because none of them know who you are.
Yeah.
And so part of it is, this is, I think, where the sort of critique of, this is with a brilliant performance by David Nell as the head chef, just as he, you just watch a man collapse, right? Basically Robin takes him apart and basically, 15 years of this guy's career just falls away.
And not even in a mean way. I think you can even hear it in the clip, like Nicolas Cage's performance to it. And like you said, Nell's performance as well. You can hear the quivering of his lips. So realizing oh, this isn't what I wanted. And I don't know. It's more powerful to me than if he just punched him in the face and smashed his head on the table and said, "Where's my pig?"
Well, because he's telling him a truth. He's telling him a truth about himself.
Yeah.
He's breaking him open to try, part of it is this is a capitalism and art story.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And a capitalism and sort of our alienation from ourselves, which is I'm technically not a Marxist humanist, so I should be sort of well, is there human nature, blah, 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 blah. But no, capitalism is deeply alienating in the sense that we are driven by particular imperatives that create hollow spectacle. And that's what this restaurant is. And that's what shapes all of these things. It alienates, fuck it, I'll just go with this sort of framing, alienates people from the things that they might desire or would make them feel more fulfilled for the needs of sort of a market, right? And this is one example. And the other one, I think, in many ways, the other key example is Darius and Amir, who are alienated from each other as they go about their economic business. And we'll get into that in the next couple scenes. But I think that, if you're sort of talking about the critique of the sort of capitalism of the restaurant industry, where the most personal and beautiful, one of the most personal and beautiful things that human beings have been able to do throughout their history is turn into this hollow facade that is marketed to people who may not even like the fucking food anyway, but it fits within a particular marketed trendiness. The film industry is like this in a lot of ways. Specifically, we could say to a certain degree about art film, and potentially,
Yeah.
At that end of it, right, the higher end. But also, this operates at that level, and then it operates at that interpersonal level where this person is sort of challenged end to end and is opened up, right? Like, this is a good thing to happen to this chef in a way.
What's what I mean? Like, it's not done as a point of malice the way beating him up would be. It's almost like he's just so calm about it. He's like, Derek, what did you want to do? Like, it's I don't know, some of the best scenes. That's the scenes that really connected me more with, like, this is like some of the best scenes in Fight Club, was not like the brawling and the blood and the, beating up each other. It's some of the critiques of like what is masculinity and how that's operated within the marketplace and how it's bought and sold and these ideals that no one can ever live up to, et cetera, et cetera. But in here, it's done almost in like a oddly loving way.
Well, he, instead of fighting people, he does interventions.
Exactly.
Brings them to the tears and then asks, where's my pig?
Right. And then it turns out Derek does have some info on the pig.
Right. So, yes. So the pig was probably stolen to get troubles for Derek's restaurant. And he sort of says, this is not somebody you want to mess with. Right. This is in the world. I mean, this is sort of part of it is in the parallels to your John Wickian film. This would be, it turns out this is the biggest gang boss in town. But in the restaurant world, it's the biggest, basically, merch, like in between guy for restaurants, which is who? Amir's dad.
Indeed. But also then Rob kind of has a, what the fuck? How does he know about me and my pig?
Yep.
So that creates a little rift between Amir and Robin.
Right. Because it's clear that that he'd found out from Amir. Amir didn't mean for this to happen. Right. Passion, but this is how it happened.
But then, Rob's like, okay, I know who to go talk to. So he goes to talk to Darius, and he gets offered what is like up to like $25,000 in exchange for the pig.
Yeah.
And also threatens to kill Rob if he continues to keep coming for the pig, which gave me more like, is there gangster ties here? Or is this dude just like a that top tier of like restaurant, ingredient supplier?
Restaurant biz is a brutal biz.
I mean, this in the Fight Club scene were the two where I was just like, okay, I don't like the tone to him is fine. I was just sort of like, it's interesting the worlds at straddling where I was kind of was like, okay, so he's more than just the restaurant supplier. Okay, so is there an organized crime element to this?
I think
kind of doesn't matter.
I think he is just a restaurant supplier. I think that's the point. I mean, part of it
makes that comedic then, but it's not played for comedy.
Well, but I don't know. I've never been in that level of the restaurant business. It might be pretty ugly out there. But part of it is like, this is somebody who has become to embody his business. He is a cold, hard person in which all social relationships can turn into money. And he does, I mean, he basically just says with Amir is not cut out for this business, and I will find him a little place to. So he's completely dismissive of people having. He's part of it is this. I mean, in a sense, he embodies that sort of capitalist drive for control, right? Because Amir has no existence outside of him, and he is dismissible, right? Any of his efforts to live up to this are dismissible. I will take care of him, but ultimately he's under my control.
Mm-hmm.
So are you. I own you, and you will do as, any offense that I do to you, can be dealt with money, which, is like not pocket change, but is not, and right. You'll trouble me no more. I mean, it's someone who is used to controlling every situation that he's in, but is also is emotionally cauterized. And Robin points that out and asks about, were you like this before your wife died?
Right. Yeah. It's like, I guess, top of the food chain, if that's the right metaphor here. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, well, what I say goes. And then when that's not how the movie plays out, obviously, he's not equipped to deal with it.
But
Darius, I mean,
because he's alienated himself from his emotions, like our chef, who seems so much weaker, he's brittle and cauterized. And then with Robin, I can't remember when this has come out. I don't think it's come out yet, but I think it is. I mean, but the deal with Robin is that his wife died.
yeah, it's a few scenes away.
It's a few scenes away. But just to say that, so he directly relates to this. So this is, everybody's dealing with loss in different ways in this.
Well, that's a good transition too, because as Rob angrily, ends his partnership with Amir, he realizes that's how Darius knows about the pig in the first place. We get, I think, maybe the one scene where it's not Nicolas Cage front and center.
Yeah.
It's Amir, Alex Wolff as Amir, going and visiting his mother, who turns out is still alive, and has been basically just left comatose in a care facility. And he's not even in the room with her. He's like outside the room, kind of talking to her with the door closed. And then a care worker comes by and is like, "Oh, did you want to go and see her?" And he's like, "Oh, no, no, no." And they go in to check on her or whatever. So he kind of sees her laying in the bed, hooked up to machines at a distance. So we get confirmation that, okay, well, his mom is still alive. So Darius's wife isn't dead. She is in a facility, comatose right now.
And as he points out, why he says to himself, why won't he let him go? Let her to go.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about his father. His father's drive for control, but also inability to deal with loss, to cope with loss, means that he keeps his mother alive, even though she's been comatose for all this time. The whole suicide story, maybe that's how she got there, but probably not.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really give us anything to go on other than that's the story he tells, just that he doesn't have to talk about his mom, Amir.
I mean, because part of it is the thematics that come out of the earthquake story would indicate that, no, this is just, these are the larger forces in life that we don't get to control. We don't get to control those things. We just get the things that we care about.
Yeah.
And we have to live with that.
And then in a beautiful moment, Rob leaves after confronting Darius, and Amir is waiting outside for him. The real father-son duo I want to see back together again, creating some meaning, are back. And what does Rob do? He admits to Amir that he does not need his beloved pig to find the truffles.
Yeah.
He can tell by the trees because he knows the environment. Rob knows the environment in which he lives. He just loves his pig and he wants his companion back.
Well, that's it. So why did you want the pig? And it's like, well, I love her.
Yeah.
And it's such a, oh my gosh, it's so hard. I just can't deal with it.
That's fine. Like, I didn't find that scene. Well, it's hard because, I guess we should probably say spoiler if you don't know the movie, the ending of the movie or anything like that. At this point in the story, we don't know the fate of the pig.
We don't.
And I found that scene to be so touching. And I was like, oh, this is like the beating heart center of this movie up to that point was him sharing that with Amir. Like, it's okay to admit when you love something.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if Amir had ever heard that. Well, I guess he I think he does have some genuine love for his mom, although that's obviously not reciprocal because she's comatose and he can't. Maybe that's just his visiting her might just be his way of like feeling a connection.
I mean, he loves his dad. He just wants his dad to love him back.
Right, but it just seems like that's a dead end street. But so Rob gives Amir, so like they've mended that bridge. They're good again. Rob gives Amir a list of things to go collect, acquire, buy, and he says to use my name to get these things. We don't know necessarily what that is, but I think he mentions like a bottle of wine or something. So you're like, oh, okay, it's not go get my guns and ammo and grenades and flak jacket because I got to get John Wick revenge on your dad. It's, oh, I guess we're getting some food stuff. That makes sense. You're a world famous, chef. And we get a scene where Rob and Amir are preparing a meal together, which might be the scene of the most joy I found in the whole movie.
Before we jump to that, there's a couple, I think, key scenes. One,
it's just the baguette scene, right?
The baguette scene and also getting the wine. So I like the baguette scene because part of it is this is where we really cement sort of Rob, and we see part of it is we've seen the connections and the awe that he has inspired, But here we actually, I think we get a sense of him, and not just him, but the relationship with his wife, them as a couple,
Yeah.
and love that they had through the eyes of their friends. Because he goes two places. He goes back to his old restaurant site, which has now been taken over by one of the, I think it's one of his former employees and friends, but she's a baker, so she's turned it into a bakery. And so part of it is this is a site where change has happened, right? The world has, in a sense, moved on, but built on the love that him and his wife had put into that place,
Mm-hmm.
by someone now, but pushed forward by somebody that they loved. And this is a representation of the sort of somebody, one of the people he probably mentored, who does get what he's talking about. She's not a chef, she's a baker.
She's doing what she loves.
She's doing what she loves. She turned it into what she loved. And so I find that to be, I love that scene for that, right? That all these things come through. And then Amir goes and gets the wine, which is actually in the same place where his wife is buried. I think this means that they're Jewish. And it's just the scene, what do you see there? And then it's also one of their friends who's inherited their wine, their wine cellar. So those scenes, there's so much conveyed there.
Right. It piled on like the sentimentality I didn't need necessarily. They're not bad scenes. I was just like, I was already there emotionally, but it shows the deep connection that Rob had, or I guess still has, because he's visiting these people, with other humans the way like Amir does not have that we see in the movie. He does not have, close friend. Like, who are his peer group or his friends?
He knew one of the guys working at one of the restaurants.
He didn't seem very happy to see him.
Yeah, and he also,
but it's transactional. It's business based. It's not like a shared love of cooking or anything in particular.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Then when he gets the seats at that restaurant, he goes to a connection there, but it's one of his suppliers.
Right.
I mean, one of the people he supplies.
It's still a favor.
And it's Robin's name that gets him in.
Right.
Right. When he tries to use his own connection, his own, I'll give you this at a discount. It doesn't work. The guy's not going to do it for him. When he uses, my guest is Robin Feld.
Oh, okay. We got a seat now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are not friends. But then, yes, now we get the scene where Amir and Rob are preparing a meal together. If you've been paying really close attention, I did not pick up on it at first until they were actually eating the meal, but it's the meal that Darius and his now comatose wife enjoyed that Amir talked about in that very, one of those early scenes where he and Rob were having breakfast together.
And it's a beautiful scene, right? It's a beautiful scene. If you haven't seen The Taste of Things is basically all that scene. It's just continuous scenes of
it's food porn, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's absolute food porn. I love it. Yeah. It's great.
Food porn seems like it's having a moment. I mean, this is 2021, but we had the menu last year.
Yeah.
And the Taste of Things, and yeah, it's
so they get Darius to come out for the meal.
Right. Which, I mean, think about what people presumably thought the movie was when they were originally going in to see it. And instead now you have the quote unquote showdown scene between the star of the movie and the heavy, I guess, who kidnapped his pig. And that scene is not going to be like a three-way standoff with guns or even like a duel or anything like that. We're going to sit down and we're going to share a meal. And the flavor and the memory of that meal is so powerful that Darius basically runs out of the room because he's overwhelmed and he's crying and he's brought to tears, not even by words in this case from Nicolas Cage's Robin chef character. It's from the food he's prepared. So just like he did with Chef Derek, he's now done with Darius and he's so emotionally vulnerable now he can finally confront him about the pig and get the truth out.
And in each case, he's forced them to face authentic emotions and feelings that are hidden both under sort of a capitalistic gloss, the things that capitalism in a sense forces us to survive, as well as layers of fucked up masculinity and control. And he cuts through this with the power of a good meal that connects to us emotionally.
or a good conversation with Chef Derek. I wrote in my notes that it's is this film really about dudes finally being able to cry about the inauthenticity of their lives?
Yeah, kind of.
A little bit.
And not being able to and processing loss.
Yeah.
It letting go
Letting
of
things go. Yeah.
accepting the control that you have and the control that you don't have.
Indeed. And then of course we get the horrible news from Darius because he's in such a vulnerable state, and Nicolas Cage just wants his pig back. Turns out the tweakers, the original pig kidnappers, were too rough, and the pig didn't make it. So now everyone's crying, except Amir, I guess. But
well, Amir's pretty close. I mean, it's everybody. It's
pretty rough.
I mean, part of it is Darius is crying because one of the standout lines is basically Robin telling him, "I remember every meal that I ever cooked and every person I ever served," which means, yes, I know I've created exactly the meal that you had with your wife to bring back these memories, right?
Yeah.
But I think in that sense of genuine, so this is where we might I was sort of signaling to you before. We might disagree that this is an opening for Darius and Amir potentially. We don't see it happen.
Right.
But Darius has been forced into a point of vulnerability, or has been brought to a point of vulnerability, not forced. He decided to eat it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's showing remorse for what he's done.
Right.
Which is the first non-piece of shit thing
it really is. Yeah.
The whole movie.
Right. I mean, it indicates that there is a pathway for Darius and Amir. We don't see anything beyond that last scene for those two characters.
Right.
Together. We see, Amir giving Rob a ride back towards his cabin in the woods, and Rob's like, "I'll see you next Thursday." So like they're going to continue their working relationship, which I think is more than a working relationship at this point, but at least going to continue that. Time will tell if, Darius can come around or not.
They share a brownie at the diner, and Amir breaks down in his car, and Rob walks most of the way back home, and in the misty, morning, has to go on with his life.
Yep.
And earlier at the very beginning of the movie, we had heard he had a cassette tape, and he put it on, and we'd heard a woman's voice. And now he plays it, and it's clearly his wife making a tape for his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about how they're going to go out to dinner, and he's going to complain about the food, and she's going to have to get very drunk to deal with it. But and to stop trying to get in the room because she's trying to make him a surprise because she loves him.
Mm-hmm.
And then she sings Bruce Springsteen's what is it?
I don't know Springsteen music that well at all, actually, but
yeah, it's a Springsteen song.
I mean, it's a pretty haunting version because it plays over the credits, and you're just like, holy cow, not a dry eye in the house. Well, I point out too, one of the key things at the beginning of the movie, which you said he mentioned, like he had a cassette tape and he had a little boombox there. One of the things Amir brings him, I guess in exchange for the truffles, are some fresh batteries.
Yeah.
So without batteries, he doesn't have access to his wife's tape or voice.
Right.
Those moments anymore.
It's I'm on Fire.
It's an
incredibly haunting version of I'm on Fire that goes to the credits.
Gotcha.
As he has to go on and keep dealing with his loss. Has Rob dealt with the lesson? I mean, when we're talking about loss in this movie, there's dealing with the loss, there's accepting loss, and that is going to happen. That you have to grab onto the things that you care about. But my question is, has Rob done that?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe not. It's hard to tell because we don't have that much information about it, but he clearly dealt with his wife's death by walking away from his chosen profession and heading to the woods. I don't know how long that pig was around. If that was like the John Wick, here's a dog for you. It's the last, I don't know if was it the last gift of his wife that they had a pig, or he just got a pig and like put all of his, unprocessed emotions for losing his wife into the pig.
I mean,
it's the care and love for the pig, and then that's gone. So now he's finally dealing with the loss of his wife emotionally.
I don't think that's necessarily it. I mean, it's possible this journey is helping him to accept more. It's not totally clear that's a possibility. I think, I mean, the pig doesn't seem to connect. The pig was just something else that, was something else that he loved. He lost something else as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, maybe the pig is a substitute for the wife in the sense of being a companion.
Or yeah,
But
just like I lost another thing that meant the world to me.
right,
Yeah.
So as you can tell, I love this movie. And I've said earlier, I think it is a movie that helps me as I sort of move toward the end of my 30s and think about loss and changing life and so on. It's one of the movies that helps me to process that.
Sure.
I think that and like The Life and Death of the Major Blimp or something. Even though these are both movies about old men, which I am not. But I also think the themes around sort of capitalism and the ways it drives us and our relationships, and then this sort of the sense of isolation, and also the story that Rob tells, the sense of potential for ecological apocalypse that we just can't control in a world in which that very much is what it feels like, right? Both with our ecological crisis, in our COVID moment, with this fucking election, with the ongoing genocide in Gaza, which we can watch, and then I was talking. Well, I don't want to get into it because it's their work, but I was talking with somebody about what's going on in Sudan right now and the war there, which I don't want to get deeply into, but it's this sense of worlds ending and what we make of that. It feels like a movie that fits with our times very well in some, in hard ways, but it's true.
Well, my point seems a little bit more moot after that scope of humanity's place in the in the world you just spelled out, which is not wrong at all. I completely agree with. So the notes I wrote up after watching this movie are a bit more, well, it's more personal than that. I'm not, I don't want to sound dismissive. I'm sorry.
I mean, what I said was very personal, but I tend to go big.
You did very big. I was thinking, just within my own house right now. My oldest, my son is finishing up his junior in high school, and he's looking at colleges, and he's at that point where you start thinking about careers and things. And I come from an arts background. My partner's from math and education, very logic brain background, and that's kind of his brain. And I have a real worry for him. You have to have a fucking job to get by in the world, and I don't want him. I want him to be able to hold on to his passion and not become a fucking Derek. I don't want him to be the person who didn't follow his passion and just found some place in a pecking order to get enough money in so that he can survive. I want him to have, passions and interests and go more, I guess, the Robin Ford route than that was the designer. What's his name? Robin Feld. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't want him to go more the Robin Feld route, I guess, but maybe have a partner who is around longer than, Robin's wife was around in this particular movie. But man, looking at, colleges and career opportunities and things like that, it's always about the money.
And part of the problem is, as somebody in the humanities, and I have to tell this to people, fuck the college stuff as job training, because you'll learn something and then you'll go do something. You can learn, and frankly, unless you're going into something highly technical, you can learn most of this. So you might as well learn how to think.
Right. Which, well, he's looking at all that engineering and blah blah blah. But I want them to be, and same goes my daughter too. She's just got a few more years left because she's in middle school before we have to be thinking about this. I want like the passion and the interest to be front and center, and not the, is this going to get me an internship? Is this going to get me in the career? Like, we'll figure that out. Like, let care, connect, be a human.
Here's the problem, is that we live in a world ruled by, to use Marx's phrase in a recent sort of hit piece of Marx's philosophy, we live in a world ruled by mute compulsion. We are all driven in order to survive, in order to reproduce ourselves, by these forces, right? And they affect everybody differently based on your class position, based on, gender dynamics and all these things and how they come together. But they're there, and we desperately want a way out so that we can actually feel like we have some sort of control to follow our wishes. And once again, this is a dangerous ground philosophically, because it sort of speaks to the danger of sort of viewing sort of human nature, which is alienated. And I don't believe in a singular sort of human nature, eternal human nature, which is we're alienated from our true selves. But I do think it's fucking alienating from anything joyful or whatever, because it's not a way to live, right?
Right.
And it turns everything to shit.
Yeah.
It turns art to shit. It turns
food
to shit. It turns our cities to shit, and it's turning our environment to shit too.
Well, then that's, a product of our environment. It turns us into shit. Human beings. I mean, it can. I would tend to stay optimistic here, but that's the nature of great art as I experience it. Other people can experience it differently, obviously, but it gets you thinking about things beyond just like, I want my pig back. Like there's just a lot more going on that it forces you to philosophically wrestle with, even though I wouldn't say this is an overtly like artsy or philosophic film. Like it's full of a lot of heart and emotions and interesting character dynamics and fantastic performances. The score is a fucking knockout. The mood it sets for this whole thing is great. Everybody should go watch it.
Everyone should go watch it if you haven't seen it. Basically, one of my favorite theater experiences. I gotta admit, my best theater stories come from Nicolas Cage movies.
Nothing wrong with that.
No,
we rattle off a lot of highlights early on in this podcast. So, what do we got in front of us next time, Isaac?
Well, I think we're gonna look at South Korea. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the wonders that is the South Korean film industry in the last 20 years. But since I'm going to be honest with you, we are not in the time period of this podcast where either of us can watch 20 movies for one episode. We're going to look at focus on one particular movie, though I'm going to try to watch a bunch more. What movie might that be?
Joint Security Area from 2000, from director Park Chang-wook. And I don't know, maybe it's a topic we'll revisit here and there, but we wanted to pick a specific movie because one, it's a, political cinema show. And this deals with the demilitarized zone and the in between what the dynamics between North Korea and South Korea, but also writ large on a international scale when there's an investigation going on and how muddy those politics get. But also there's a lot written and covered within South Korean cinema. So we don't need to be one more podcast that watches Parasite again, even though it's brilliant and an amazing film. There's so many that we could pick. We're like, nope, that's very well covered. That's very well covered. We like to try to find the gems that maybe need a little bit more exposure.
Well, can I just say, we're choosing a Park Chan-wook movie, so I wouldn't say we're going for a deep cut.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying super deep, but I just meant, it's
not one of the ones that were big hits here.
Well, I would say it's not even one of his big hits, to be honest.
Yeah. All right.
People are familiar with Old Boy and Handmaiden, Decision to Leave, Lady Vengeance. You got to scroll down his list of popular films on Letterboxd before you get to JSA, Joint Security Area. But still, yes, no, obviously it's not an unheard of movie, but it fit the bill for what we like discussing here. So
we chose the second most well-known outside of South Korea for this, and by not second most well-known by barely anything. But we'll also probably talk about some others in our general love of South Korean film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, there's a reason to cover him because he's fucking amazing.
Well, there's that too. But also I've been reading about it, and what kind of prompted us to do this now was a little teaser for next time. There's one particular woman I've been reading about in the South Korean film industry that the story of where she started and how she ended up on stage holding an Academy Award for Parasite is pretty astounding to me. So we'll be discussing all that next time. But before we fully sign off, be sure to rate and review the show in whatever podcast app you are currently listening to us in. And if you enjoy the show, tell a friend or two about it. And if you love the show and feel so inclined and have the means, we do have a Patreon page set up. Just follow the links in the show notes. Until next time, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Isaac. I'm going to continue to say it. Stay in the streets. Keep up the pressure. We have a genocide to stop. I've been saying it for nearly half a year now. And unfortunately, we've moved into a stage which I have to admit I was naive enough to think that the U.S. would have called a stop. And I actually think another administration might have at another time would have put pressure on Israel to do this, but they will not. Biden will not. So keep disrupting, because I mean, right now, this is a moment of desperation, but also we've created a new politics, a new anti-war politics out of that, which I think is really powerful. So yeah, stay safe.